This is the Morning Drive Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
There was Big 12 basketball last night that got underway. Here's scores from last night. Number 3, Iowa State goes into Boulder and beats Colorado 79-69. So Colorado's first Big 12 game after they've left and come back goes awry for them. They lose by 10. Houston, the number 14 team in the country, defeated Oklahoma State in Stillwater 60-47. Those Big 12 road wins are big, especially for teams like that maybe go into environments that maybe weren't quite so hostile yesterday with students being gone, et cetera, et cetera. Kansas State wins at home over number 16 Cincinnati. That's going to be a good win for the Wildcats.
You would think.
70-67. And Arizona wins at home over TCU 90-81. Today, as far as the Big 12 is concerned, these are all afternoon affairs, which you would assume would be probably good for everybody's attendance, and just, with the way that obviously the holiday is tomorrow and New Year's Eve tonight. West Virginia plays at number 7 Kansas. That's a 1 o'clock tip. Number 25 Baylor plays host to Utah. Both those teams are 8-3, and that's a 1 o'clock tip. Of course, our game here today, a 1 o'clock tip. Both teams are 9-2, Tech and UCF. And then at 3 o'clock today, BYU plays host to Arizona State. Tech is on the road on Saturday. They go to play first at Utah, and that'll be a 6 o'clock tip our time. And then on Tuesday, they'll stay out there, and they'll play BYU on Tuesday, and that's a 8 o'clock tip from the Marriott Center there at BYU, which is just across the street from the center field wall of the baseball stadium and just down the street from the football stadium. And Provo's about 45-minute drive from Salt Lake City. So it'll be an easy little bus ride for them from Salt Lake, where they'll play Utah, to play BYU on Tuesday. Okay.
The games from yesterday, obviously the one that jumps out at you is that Kansas State win over Cincinnati. Cincinnati, a team that was, I think, picked to finish in front of you, if I remember correctly. And, just it feels like Kansas State's been a bit of a mess up to this point, and that was a surprising outcome. Yeah, no,
I think you're exactly right. I mean, they've had some challenges with their roster and some internal stuff, and all those kinds of things that kind of made you scratch your head and go, man, what in the world is going on there? It seemed like they had it really going, and maybe they do. Maybe that helps them kind of right the ship a little bit. So there you go on that.
Arizona State's not predicted to be very good, and men's basketball. Is it going to be the same thing with football, Chuck? Are they going to just roll the rest of the Big 12?
That's what the basketball coach is saying.
Yeah.
Going, hey guys,
football team did it. Why can't we?
Why can't we? Right. Yeah. They didn't think we're much of anything. So what do you guys make of that? So the Monday night game last night went the way of the Detroit Lions, I should say, 40-34 over San Francisco. San Francisco, man, a Super Bowl team to 6-10, but they've been really injured, beat up, and all those things. It's one of those
years where it felt like the injuries were contagious.
Detroit has been a little beat up as well. I mean, they've had some key injuries, but they're a super talented team, and they may be a team that wins it all. They're looking for their first ever Super Bowl appearance. And so they lost to San Francisco last year for the right to go to the Super Bowl, and that was still sitting in Dan Campbell's craw. And they go out and win yesterday, and they really had nothing to play for other than pride and gamesmanship. And he said after the game he felt like he owed it to his team to play the starters, and wasn't fair to play the guys that hadn't been preparing to play this. Wasn't fair to them. And so they moved their record to 14-2 on the season, and it kind of sets up their next game, which basically they're playing for the right to be the number 1 seed between them and Minnesota.
Yeah, I don't know how you can say they didn't have anything to play for. I mean, they're still fighting for that number 1 seed, right?
Yeah, but I don't think last night mattered with regard to that. I don't think that played into it. Maybe I'm wrong. I guess I'm wrong about that. Okay, so because both the Vikings and the Lions, I thought I'd heard that, and I was
they
trying
have
to.
the same record.
Yeah.
I guess if the Lions had lost to make them 13-3, if they had beaten the Vikings, they still would have had the tiebreaker over them.
Yes.
But what about the Eagles in that mix? Because the Eagles are 13-3.
I think they had the tiebreaker over everybody. I don't think that game mattered with regard to that. In other words, if you win,
if the Lions had lost, they beat the Vikings, and even if the Eagles had won to get to 14-3, they would both be 14-3, and they would still have the tiebreaker over the Eagles. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Seems odd, but okay.
And those two teams, the Lions and the Vikings, will play.
Who has the tiebreaker with the Vikings and the Eagles?
I don't know. I feel like I should know that because I portray myself as a guy that follows the NFL, but I don't know all the tiebreakers. And that's a 7:00 Sunday night game between the Vikings and the Lions. So it's a really good matchup there. A lot of these playoff spots are decided as we head to Week 17 and then the wild card weekend the next week. So final weekend of the NFL is this week, and final weekend for the Dallas Cowboys. Speaking of the Cowboys, still kind of a lot of wonderment of what's going to happen to that coaching staff. Between now and Monday, Mike McCarthy has basically said he said this yesterday or the other day. He said he goes. With regard to his options, he said, I do appreciate the opportunity to speak on it. I've answered this question the same for however many months now, so I think the focus, I need to make sure I'm doing exactly what I'm asking everyone else to do. We need to finish the race. It's been a challenging year based on our contract situation for coaches. It's stating the obvious, but we'll have time to talk about that next week. A number of players have endorsed Mike McCarthy coming back. Kind of feels like that's what it's leading to. Wonder if there's going to be changes on the coaching staff. All those guys have their deals expire upon the conclusion of the game on Sunday.
Looks like the Vikings have the tiebreaker over the Eagles as well.
Okay. Whoever wins, it's 1 seed. Loser is the 5 seed. That's what someone says, and I'd heard that too. That's the number that I'd heard, the 5 seed. So you drop all the way down. That winner take all game.
Assume that is if the Eagles win.
Yeah.
The Morning Drive podcast from Double T 97.3 is presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Today is December 31st, 2024. With this day in sports history, here is Jeff McGuire.
1961 National League Championship took place in the NFL. Green Bay Packers shut out the New York Giants 37-0. The first of 5 NFL titles won in 7-year span by the Packers head coach Vince Lombardi. 1972, the 39th Sugar Bowl took place. Number 2 Oklahoma beats number 5 Penn State 14-0. A year later, the 40th Sugar Bowl took place. Shocking like that. Notre Dame beats number 1 Alabama 24-23.
On December 31st, 1972.
72 and 73.
Huh.
1997, the 27th Fiesta Bowl took place. Kansas State, and it's hitting at number 10, beat number 14 Syracuse 35-18.
Sorry about that, Jamie.
No, that's a tough one.
He's only sorry because Kansas State won.
No,
not because Syracuse lost.
No. I want Jamie to have happiness.
What year was it?
That was 97.
97.
In 2012, Tracy Jackson and Josh Grace each scored 10 points to lead Texas Tech to a 70-56 win over Florida A&M. Jordan Tolbert added 9 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 blocks for the Red Raiders. Dejan Kravich had 8 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 blocks in the win. And in 2017, Cleveland Browns crash into a 28-24 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers at Heinz Field to become only the second team in NFL history to finish the season 0-16. Of all the foods, I feel like this is the biggest day. Happy National Champagne Day.
Okay.
Big time happy birthday going out to former Red Raider baseball player Orlando Garcia. Turns 29 today.
Yeah. How about that, Jamie?
Nice.
And also a voice that we love to hear, and we would desperately wish to tell you how old he is, but Brian Jensen doesn't want to tell me what year he was born. So happy birthday, Brian Jensen. That is all you get. I cannot tell you how old you are. You need to know this. Also celebrating a birthday today, Sir Anthony Hopkins is 87, Donald Trump Jr., 47, Val Kilmer, 65, and Joey McIntyre from the New Kids on the Block is 52. And in this day, big time famous airplane crash involving a sports athlete.
Yeah.
I will not discuss that one because I think we discussed it last year.
We did.
However, another famous plane crash happened today.
Really?
1985. Former teen idol Ricky Nelson dies in a plane crash. The cabin of his DC-3 apparently filled with smoke due to fire of an undetermined origin.
Yeah.
While the two pilots of the plane would survive their attempted emergency landing in a field, all 7 passengers on board were killed.
I think there were some nefarious activities going on in the cabin, if I recall correctly.
I think it's still undetermined. Hence why it says undetermined. You would still find that stuff. I think it was a fire in a DC-3. And that is this day in sports history.
All right, this day in sports history for today, December the 31st. I know I've asked you guys this question before. I think I know Jamie's answer. I can't remember about Jess. Resolutions or goals? Do either of you have or set them or write them down?
I do not write anything down, I guess because I really don't really have New Year's resolutions. If I feel like I need to do something, I try to get after it in the right now.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Why wait to a new year to improve yourself? Why wait? As soon as you come up with one, start doing it then.
Oh, okay. Any goals or anything that you write down? No? Okay.
Start doing it right then.
Okay.
If you feel you have a flaw, fix it.
What if you just have a goal of something you want to achieve? You don't do you write that down?
Right, but don't wait until New Year's Day. Start it yesterday.
I know. I just some people. Some people
and some people have to wait until the new year to improve themselves. I am not one of them. I'm trying to be a better person every day.
I'm
failing miserably, but trying.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you on that. But it's a reset. You know, it's a reset of the year.
I have no problem with people doing that. Yeah. I think some people, when they write stuff down, it helps to motivate them. They see it, whatever. It makes them feel like it's a reminder. Yeah, I have no problem with people that do it that way.
I would be in that ilk. I looked at my 2024 goals. I kind of keep track of them and I do write them down. I was about 50%. I think I wrote down like 14 this past year. Some that were layups and some that were not. One that is a layup that I keep putting down no every single year. I'll bet you I've had this goal for the last 7 or 8 years, and it's a really simple goal, and I just haven't done it. And I don't know why. I think maybe I know why. I wear readers all the time, but I've had this on my list to get my eyes checked every single year, and I have to say no. I have to say no again this year, and it'll go on the list for 2025. So maybe 2025 will be the year when I'm going to just kind of go in. I did pass my eye test for my driver's license. So I was pleased about that. The gal's like, I go, did I pass? She goes, you passed. It kind of sounded like you passed, but barely. But she didn't say barely. She said, you passed without my readers. So I was like, okay, well, that's good.
Yeah, I don't even test without my glasses. I'm like, no, we'll just leave these on. They need to stay on.
Viva 73 says, I do not make a resolution, but my goal is to make it to 79 this year. It is a good Lord willing number. Yeah, good luck to you, Viva 73.
Yeah, I think we all should try to have that whole I want to live the whole year.
Yeah, make it through the whole year. Right?
Probably don't need to write it down though.
No, that's not one that I write down. I wrote down a number of them, and like I said, I was about 50%, which I think that's a failing grade, right? 50%. Yeah, it's subpar performance for 2024 in my goal setting.
50%?
Yeah, about 50%.
That depends if you're shooting from the floor or you're shooting free throws. From the floor, that's a great percentage.
It also depends on the level of difficulty.
Yeah, there were some that were pretty difficult.
If you passed the final with a 90, but it only led you to a 50% for the year, I mean, that could still be a passing grade.
Yeah.
Did you pass your final?
No.
Well, then, no, that's another passing grade.
I was about 97%, I think, of my final, 96%. That's close, but did not get to the magic number. Let's see. I remember watching the Ice Bowl on live TV December 31st, 1967. I was so hoping the Cowboys would get revenge from the 1966 NFL championship game loss. Well, I think the Ice Bowl was 66 because the Super Bowl I was played in 67. So I think you're a year off on that with the Ice Bowl. Have you ever seen any of those? I'm sure you have those highlights of those guys.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You know, just the frozen tundra. I mean, the breath.
The line of scrimmage, where you see everybody's breath in the air. Yeah.
Stott and Bart Starr and Don Meredith and all that kind of stuff. So, all right, just before 7 this morning here on the Morning Drive. Continue to take your thoughts, comments. If you want to share a resolution that you have, maybe it's to lose weight or stop smoking or, reduce your screen time. That was one of my resolutions this year, was to reduce my screen time. And I would have to tell you that as much as I wanted to say I did, I got to admit that I didn't. So, hi, my name's Chuck. I've got a problem with my screen time.
Your daily dose of sports and fun. This is the Morning Drive Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Jamie Lent and Jeff McGuire. I'm Chuck Heinz. We'll have bowl coverage for you today on 100.7 The Score. They start at 10:30 this morning, and they'll finish up late tonight with the Fiesta Bowl, featuring Boise State and Penn State. We'll also have the Texas Bowl on the air today after Texas Tech and UCF. Single digit, double digit win, or is it a loss today for the Red Raiders?
I'm going to go... I'll go high single digits.
Okay. Like 8, 9, somewhere along those lines.
Yep.
Okay. Last year at home, you played UCF at home. Played them on February the 10th. Okay. And so in that ball game, let's see, the Red Raiders won 66-59. So,
but they had surprised you the first time that you played them and gave you a loss.
The loss came after.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That was later in the year?
Yeah.
Wow, I had that remembered as
I know.
Early on in the season.
I'm gonna double check myself here, but I'm pretty certain of that.
Well, you said that one was February 10th.
Mm-hmm.
You played them at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My schedule flipped back to this year. Yeah, I think the second game was a little bit later. But at any rate, you play them today at 1. What do you think the defense in the Big 12 is going to be like for the Red Raiders when it comes to their three-point shooting? Because, I mean, you've been at a pretty good clip here. You're shooting 40%. You're making about 10 threes a ball game. Is that going to be a challenge, do you think, in the Big 12?
Well, is it the building or is it the Big 12? Because you've shot it really well at home and not as well away from home. So I think that's one of the big question marks. Can you be the same team away from home that you are at home, have been at home where you've shot the ball exceptionally well.
You played UCF last year on February the 24th, so the loss came after.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you that number is going to go down because of
as you're playing tougher competition. Tougher competition.
Yeah, way tougher competition. So you're averaging about 86 a ball game. I mean, if you average 86 a ball game in the Big 12, you're doing pretty damn good.
Yes.
I think that number could get cut by like 10, right?
Yeah, I don't mean to say that we need to throw out every stat that we've seen so far this year. I'm not suggesting that. I think you're going to be a good three-point shooting team. I think Chance McMillan's going to be a good player for you. I think JT Toppin's going to do great things for you. I mean, all those things I think are true. But you have to realize the level of competition is just going up so much compared to, what you've faced so far this year.
Yeah.
We sit here and we call it the best league in college basketball, and I truly believe that is the case. And you have played a schedule that has, just not a lot of teeth to it.
Yeah, so it's just really hard to tell. So I think one thing that I think you've done a really good job of, and I'll be interested to see as the heat gets turned up with Big 12 play, is how good a job you do of taking care of the basketball. Because I think you've done a pretty good job so far of taking care of the basketball.
Yep.
And I don't think that your errors have been, self-inflicted, which I think that translates into Big 12 play. Obviously the ball pressure and things like that will be increased starting today. But I do think that it feels like that you've got a pretty physical team and a team that's not afraid of, mixing it up. And I'll be interested to see how well you take care of the ball and then how well you rebound the basketball, because right now your rebounding margin is almost 8, but it's not going to be like that in the Big 12 by any stretch of the imagination.
Wouldn't guess so.
If it is, you're again doing extremely well. The other thing I think that you've done a decent job of, when you've won, of putting away teams. It doesn't feel like it's taken as long to decide games maybe as recent years, with some of these patsies that have come in. I feel like that, we haven't had those sluggish starts where you go, oh my God, you got to peel the paint off the wall at halftime to fire this team up, and you had a close game against Syracuse, 79-74, but just in games that I feel like I've been to, and I have not been to every home game, but I've been to a majority of them, kind of feel like that you've gotten out to, and you've had your stretches where you haven't scored, but then there have been times you're just like, man, this is a dominating. You've dominated these teams. So last year in the game at home against UCF, Darion Williams had 13 points. He led you. He had points then from Warren Washington, not here anymore. Pop Isaacs, gone. Joe Toussaint, gone. Kerwin Walton had 12. Chance McMillan had 7. And then that kind of closed out the big scoring. You had 28 points in the paint to their 30, and 14 second chance points to their 12. Now, as far as UCF is concerned, they do return. Trying to see here. I don't think they return a whole lot. Jalen Sellers.
It's just crazy how, year to year, especially now in men's basketball, because of the amazing amount of turnover that you have each and every season, the what you did against them last year and how you handled them, each team is so incredibly different. You bring back some guys, no question, but you've brought in a bunch of guys that are, JT Toppin completely changes the makeup of your basketball team, right? And so it's just, what you were last year, where you were guard dominant, with 2 guys on the perimeter. That's not to say that you don't have great guards on the perimeter now, but now your number one option is your forward, right? And JT Toppin. And so you're a completely different team. If you're scouting the Red Raiders a year ago, You're like, oh, this is Grant McCaslin's style. We're coaching against that. No, it's completely different this year because your stud is in the interior now.
They do return Darius Johnson, who had 14, and Jalen Sellers, who had 14. They were the two top scorers for them a year ago. Johnson is averaging 14.7 points a game this year, and Sellers has only played one game, so I'm going to assume that he's been injured and is out. So he had 7 points in one game. So Johnson is their big guy, and he's started 11 games and played 11. That's how many games that they've played. They're 9-2, and he's averaging 15 points a ball game for them. But they bring in Keyshawn Hall, who's averaging 15.2, and Jordan Ivy Curry, who's averaging 16.3 points a game. Johnson is their leading 3-point scorer. He's shooting at a clip of 46%. He's made 33s, and Ivy Curry has made 27. So between those two guys, they've made 57 of their 93s. So get a hand in the face of 0 and get a hand in the face of 3.
Okay.
So those are their two 3-point shooters. As far as the Red Raiders are concerned, really it's Chance McMillan and then other guys, because you got Anderson that's got 16, Overton's got 14, Williams has got 15 made threes, and Kerwin Walton's got 18 made threes. So you got a little bit more of an opportunity to kind of shift the ball around a little bit if somebody gets hot, from a 3-point shooting standpoint. And that 3 just makes all the difference in the world sometimes. But you sure can die by it, though, too.
That's exactly right. We've seen that this year.
Your daily dose of sports and fun. This is the Morning Drive Podcast from Double T 97.3. Presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction. Jamie's question of the day on Double T 97.3 is brought to you by Connecticut of West Texas.
All right, guys. As we all know, it's always a great day to be a Red Raider.
Yes, sir.
I want you to tell me your favorite game of 2024 and your least favorite game of 2024.
See, I was anticipating that question, and I was thinking about that because I had kind of looked ahead at the schedule from last year, and, the 24 portion of this year on the basketball side, and then I was thinking about the football side.
Do you want me to go first while you guys think about it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll say the worst was the football loss to TCU. 17-point lead partway through the third quarter. It feels magnified when you know ultimately that it ended up costing you getting into the Big 12 championship game.
Mm-hmm.
So that by far was my least favorite loss of the season. Mm-hmm. My favorite win of the season was the opening round of the Big 12 baseball tournament when you hit a 2-run homer from Cade McGee late in that contest to take down the Longhorns. Your last matchup with them as Big 12 foes.
Okay.
They would lose again the next day and get knocked out. So that was my favorite win of the 2024 year.
Okay. My worst loss for me was the Colorado game this year at home. I mean, jumped out to a 13-0 lead, and I felt like the stadium was buzzing. The pregame was great. Atmosphere was outstanding. We had a really good Optimum Game Day Live just in terms of energy and stuff like that. And you couldn't stop them. Couldn't stop them. And I thought that was
And for a stretch there, couldn't score. Yeah.
And I just thought that was a one of those get over the hump games, for Texas Tech and the football program and this regime, and it just didn't work out for you. As far as the wins, man, I mean they were few and far between for the women as far as Big 12 play is concerned. But one of the better nights, I mean probably the best night of the year from a Big 12 schedule standpoint was when you won over number 24 Iowa State at home, 71-63. And I really felt like, after that game, it's like, okay, you're heading to BYU and you're heading to, maybe an opportunity to go out there and get one, and then come back and play Houston, and then you had TCU, and then a stretch where you played Cincinnati and West Virginia. But that would be my pick on the basketball side was that game that we played here at home against Iowa State and won 71-63. Because after that, you go to Provo and you get beat by 14. Come back and defeat Houston, which you beat them 3 times last year, and beat TCU, and then started losing again. So I'll go with that win over Iowa State.
Anytime you beat Texas on the road in men's basketball, when they've got a number next to their name and you don't, that's a big win.
Sure.
That's the last win you have against the Longhorns in basketball. I'll take that one all day, every day. That's my favorite. Now, it sucks that was January 6th, because that's like the 6th day of the year. Takes for a long year to get your next best. I mean, there were other good wins this year, don't get me wrong. But beating Texas early in the season was your first big top 25 ranking win under Grant McCasland, I think. I'd have to go back and look for sure, but I think that's right. And being the Longhorns in the last year in the Big 12, and maybe the last time you played them for quite some time in Austin. So yeah, I'll take that as my favorite win. Baylor loss in football. The high that you had going into that game, equaled by the low you had coming out of it. And we were pretty high going into that game.
Yeah, I mean, all 3 of those football losses that Jamie talked about, the TCU one, and then the one that I talked about, the Colorado one, and then yours with Baylor. I think those are all interchangeable, don't you, Jamie?
Yeah, all disappointing in different ways. For me personally, the Colorado one is the least disappointing, just because I felt like they were the better team. Okay. And so you didn't, underperform in that game. They were better than you. Okay. I mean, if we look back at the season as a whole, I think Colorado's a better football team than Texas Tech was this year. Baylor clearly was a very hot team at the end of the year, and they beat you from sun up to sundown, and felt like they beat you that week leading up to it as well. Okay? And the TCU one, obviously I have a distaste for TCU as a whole, but I feel like you beat yourself. I mean, you had a 17-point lead in the third quarter and let it somehow get away. Okay? That to me is the reason that one is so frustrating, and then the last drive and all that good stuff. If I was going on the basketball side of things, I think the biggest day was the home win against Kansas when you blew them out, and they were number 6. I mean, our crowd obviously gets really excited anytime Kansas comes to town, and that was great atmosphere. And same thing when Texas or Baylor comes to town, but that was a blowout against a top 10 team. So as far as basketball goes, I thought that was the best day for the basketball programs last year.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And just the whole, I mean, there was a big time atmosphere that day. No question about it. 7:39 this morning here on the morning drive. Question: if we win against TCU, get into the Big 12 championship, do they spend the portal money they have so far?
If not more. Because you'd have more. You'd have more people excited and donating to said funds.
Yeah, I don't know why the answer would be that we would spend less.
Yeah.
Because we feel like we have less needs. I don't think I'm buying that.
I don't think I'm buying that either.
Yeah.
I think I have a tendency to agree with Jeff that it might have seeded the pot even a little bit more, with people jumping on and saying, okay, hey, let's push even more to the center of the table and see what we can do. Who knows? You may still be playing.
Maybe.
This is the Morning Drive Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Morning Drive. Thank you for being with us today with Jamie Lent and Jeff McGuire. I'm Chuck Heinz. It's the First United Bank studio that we come to you from this morning. and await your thoughts and comments on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. You can go to doubleTSportsNetwork.com and see a couple of stories that drew my attention. One is the top 10 stories of 2024 sports stories. You may agree or disagree with some of those, including the number one story that was listed there. Okay. And then apparently, and there's a story on this as well, the Arkansas Razorback who stomped on C.J. Baskerville's ankle. His name is Fernando Carmona. He's number 55. He apparently issued a apology, Jamie, on X. Quoting here from the doubleTSportsNetwork.com article. He said, "I'd like to apologize for my actions last Friday night in the Liberty Bowl. I let my emotions get away from me. I have nothing but respect for Texas Tech and the game of football. I apologize to my team and coaches. I'm not that kind of player and will learn from this."
No, I hate to brag it to him. He's exactly that kind of player. He did it.
Yes.
And there's no emotions involved in that at that point. It's not like you're in the heat of battle and all of a sudden somebody's throwing a punch at you and so you punch back at them.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're standing there and you just, take the choice or make a choice to step on the guy's ankle and try to hurt him.
Yeah.
And there's no emotion in that.
Right. No, it's not like you got pushed on or stepped on yourself. I mean, you took the time to lift up your leg and stomp on somebody else's ankle. I mean, that was a dirty move. And
in cleats.
Yeah,
in cleats.
Yes. Big cleats, big shoes. I mean, why not just apologize and say, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that." Mm-hmm. Why is it so hard? It's right along the lines of, if I offended anyone, I'm sorry. Well, you did. You offended everybody. But how about just say, "I'm sorry. I was a bad person in that moment. I will strive to be better." But it's so difficult to do that, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I guess if you had to look at the top story this year, it would be, for Texas Tech, it would be winning an indoor national championship, right?
Well, this particular article is the top 10 stories are the things that were clicked on and read the most, okay?
Okay.
So winning an indoor national championship, yes, that was the biggest thing that Texas Tech accomplished this year, no question, in the athletic world. But is that what has the most interest from the Texas Tech fan base? No. Probably it has been the last few weeks in the transfer portal that leads to the excitement leading up to next year's football season. I don't know. I mean, you could probably pick out one particular game or whatever. I don't know. Maybe where if we were going off of the chat line and like when people were the most fired up, positive or negative, and we all know that people get more fired up with the negative than they do the positive. Shoot, I don't know. It might be the win against ACU. It might be after the loss to the next week to Washington State. I don't know. As much as I would love to say that it was after the win against Iowa State, probably not the case. So it's just, I guess it just depends on how you're judging.
Yeah, the perspective of it. This is not.
But you're right in saying the biggest deal is that you won a national championship.
Because those don't just necessarily grow on trees.
And
right?
honestly, it's not even close.
Yeah. Somebody says this: signing the pitcher for $1 million in softball surely is top 10.
Crazy. And I've said before, I'll say it again. Texas Tech signing the number one player in the country for $1.2 million or whatever is the most shocking thing that I've seen during the transfer portal NIL era. I mean, just because we're not necessarily known as this blue blood of college softball, the amount of money being spent, any softball player, I think the number before that was the most any softball player in the country was getting was like $50,000. The most. And it went from 50 grand to 1.2 or 1.1.
I think it was whatever, a million.
Whatever.
Yeah, $1 million. It was at least $1 million.
That escalated quickly.
It did, yes. and we thought, well, at least I thought, I say we, I'll say I thought signing a guy like JT Toppin for $1.2 million was an awful lot of money.
An awful lot of money, yes. Surprising, no. No, compared to what what we have been paying guys. Yeah, but the softball player,
it came out of left field, literally.
How so?
Because she didn't expect that. I mean, that's what people.
Was she in left field?
No.
Well,
no.
It didn't come out of left field.
I know, but that's what you would say. Well, that came out of left field, right?
Yes, but she was not in left field.
I know, she's a pitcher.
That saying makes no sense there.
Right, I got you, but I mean that's what they usually say. They came out of left field. Yeah. Albert says this. I'm sorry, I got caught. Yes. Yeah, that's what burglars say sometimes too. Good morning, Chuck. Happy New Year. That from DMG. Happy New Year to you. Chuck worries about number 55, but not the loss, 39-26. Of course I worried about the loss. Of course I didn't like it. If you would have won, not a single fan would be complaining. I completely disagree. Completely disagree about that.
Stop.
What are you, some kind of apologist for Arkansas? I mean, come on.
People would have cared either way. That was
it's a dirty play.
Yeah,
it's a dirty play, and he got caught. Do those things happen in games? Are punches thrown or people spit on or stuff like that? Yeah, and when you get caught, you look like a fool. But does it happen? Sure, it happens. I'm being naive.
If it's the biggest mistake that young man ever makes in his life, he'll probably have a good life. But that his apology was weak sauce. I mean. Again, whenever people say that's not who I am, but it was.
Yeah. In that moment, that's who you were. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why can't you just say, I'm sorry, I will try to do better in the future?
Yeah.
But
because he's not sorry and he won't try to do better in the future.
Yeah. It's almost like
what's in my opinion though, if it had been our guy, we would have people here sticking up for our guy just like Arkansas does.
Yeah, sadly, you're right about that.
This has been the Morning Drive Podcast, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction. Check out our library of Double T 97.3 podcasts at doublet97.3.com.